Hey there, welcome to DIY Projects with Pete. I just finished up with the big ice rink build. It was so much fun and I learned a lot along the way. So many friends and family helped throughout the process to make it possible, and I documented the entire process from start to finish of how I built this backyard hockey rink. A big thanks to Nicerink for sponsoring today's project. They made all of the boards, the liner, the resurfacer, and they have all sorts of accessories. So let's go ahead and get started with today's project.
The first step was to determine the best location in the yard and then to measure out the area. Since I live on a hill, I had to do some dirt work, but there's a good chance you have a relatively flat yard to begin with, or even if you have around 6 to 8 inches of slope, you can usually get by without having to level. If you're interested in seeing the leveling process I went through, you can check out that video, which is linked to in the description. I rented a mini excavator, and my buddy Josh brought over a bobcat to help level my 6-foot slope. I took 3 feet out of the high side and built the low side up 3 feet with the fill to get a nice level surface. A tractor with a box blade was used toward the end for smoothing things out before I could move on to the actual rink building process.
I've already leveled the area for the hockey rink, but if you're just starting to search for an area in your backyard that's relatively flat and to see what kind of grade and slope you're working with, I use a laser level. We'll turn it on. Now there's a little laser shooting a beam. We have a receiver here, and we're going to jump down, adjust this. This will be our starting point, and then we're going to walk around and see how close we are. As we get closer, we should start to hear beeping. Within a couple inches, might be about an inch high there. Pretty close though. Right on there. Really good there. It's not perfect, but it's close. The next step is going to be to lay out our rink. Our rink is going to be 44 by 88 feet long, and we'll put a stake at each corner.
I'm going to measure out the dimensions of the rink, which are 88 feet long by 44 feet wide, and I'll put a stake in each corner and I'll work around all 4 sides. We'll use the old Pythagorean's theorem to make sure our rink is square. You can plug your dimensions into a calculator and use this equation to get the length you're looking for from one corner to the other. For my rink, the corner-to-corner length is just over 98 feet, and you'll need to adjust the stakes a bit until it's all square.
The next thing we're going to do is run some string line.
Pull the string line tight and tie or wrap it around each corner stake. This is going to help in lining up our boards. I then use spray paint to mark the line on the ground, and this makes lining up the brackets much easier, and it's a good line to follow if the string line gets in the way while installing the boards. If your rink is going to have rounded corners, you'll want to measure and mark in from each corner to determine where you'll start the boards for each rounded corner. I'm going to be using 4-foot wide by 18-inch tall high-impact plastic boards for this rink, and the 4-foot segments make it easy to create the corners. Once the prep work was done, I started laying out the brackets about every 4 feet around the perimeter of the rink. These heavy-duty plastic brackets are durable and really easy to install.
So we'll start with this first bracket at the 12-foot mark. We'll put it right on the line. Put our foot in here. Slowly push it down. And then the bracket top will go right in this channel and snap in.
Now there are a lot of different ways to build a hockey rink, and you'll want to pick the method that best fits your skills, the time you have to put into the project, and your budget. One thing I like about these brackets are that they work with ordinary 3/4 inch plywood if you want to save some money and go that route. And then the nice thing about having the plastic boards are that they're about half the weight of plywood, they snap together really quickly, they're sturdier, and they'll look great year after year without needing any maintenance. It took a few boards to get the hang of everything, but once we figured it out, the process started to go pretty fast. The ground hadn't completely frozen yet, so we were still able to get all the brackets in with a push and then some taps with the mallet. But if you're dealing with frozen ground, you might want to hack off the plastic spikes and then pound in a short piece of rebar in the center hole of the bracket. The area we were working in was a bit of a mud pit since it was just leveled and no grass has been planted, which made it a little harder to do the install as we were slipping around in the mud, so I'm really looking forward to installing it on a nice grassy backyard next year. My friends George, James, and Dustin all came over to check out the process and to help put up the boards and really get the install moving along. As you can see, the corners are comprised of short, straight segments, which still works pretty well for wrapping a puck around the zone, and it's a big improvement over a standard rectangle shape. The corners were actually pretty straightforward to do, and Nicerink has a detailed library of step-by-step videos that will help with all the different processes. The overall time to put up the boards was about 2.5 hours, and I think it should go quite a bit faster next year since this was the first year putting it together. The last board clicked in, and we were ready to move on to the next step. Matt stopped over to help install the liner, which will hold the water in the rink. The liner will be about 6 feet longer in width and length than the rink, so it can go up over the boards, and so you have a little wiggle room. Liners are real tough, and they're made of thick milled plastic to prevent tears and to hold in all the water. Make sure to use a white liner because it's going to help keep your ice the coldest by reflecting the sun, and it also won't kill the grass in your backyard. We pulled the liner taut and then pushed it in against the boards and dropped the extra over them. To help hold the liner in place during the filling process, we temporarily installed a few of the bumpers on top of the boards, and while we were at it, we laid them around the entire rink as we'll install the rest of them when we add the kick plates. The bumpers look a lot like pool noodles, but they're notched to fit the boards and they're a lot more heavy duty. Once that's done, we are ready to start flooding the rink. Now there are a few different methods to flooding a rink, and they're basically filling it with a hose or hiring a water truck. You'll want to do a little research to find out the costs and the best method for your rink, but I ended up using a normal hose since I was having a tough time getting a water truck lined up when I needed it. To get an approximate idea of the flow rate, I filled a 5-gallon bucket and checked how long it took, and I was averaging about 5 to 7 gallons per minute after a few tests. I started filling the rink at 11 a.m. on a Thursday and calculated it would take a little over 2 days to fill the rink. You can calculate how much water your rink will need by searching Backyard Ice Rink Calculator online and then plugging in the dimensions of your rink. Here's a look at it after about 10 hours of flooding. The rink has about 2,900 gallons of water, and I have a water monitor and app that shows the amount of water used each day and if there's ever a leak in the system. So this was a pretty cool tool to be able to see exactly what had been used and the current flow rate. The water is going to flow to the lowest areas first, and after 24 hours, the water was covering most of the plastic with an exception of a few high spots. My first time leveling a big area like this with a 6-foot slope wasn't perfect, but the whole thing was within about 6 inches. Now you want a minimum of about 4 inches of ice on the high side or in high areas, and I had about 12 inches in the low areas and 4 to 6 in the highest spots once it was all said and done. Once there was plenty of water to hold the liner in place, I started installing the kick plates, which are designed to protect the liner from skate blades and pucks so you get a few years of use out of it. The kick plate also provides a good surface to bounce the puck off and gives it a more professional look. The plates are held in place with their L-shaped lip and then the yellow bumper that goes over the top. The ice will eventually freeze against it as well. The kick plates are flexible and they'll fit along the rink corners. I then cut the last bumper with a razor blade and finished up for the day. It's like slushy now. Here's a look at the rink right after I removed the hose and was done filling it on Saturday afternoon. It took about 54 hours to fill, and the ice then started to form. The snow from the night before didn't really affect the ice too much, but it did sort of turn it into a slush and gave the ice a cloudy appearance. You can see where the hose was filling. It's crystal clear, and the rink would have had that look throughout without the snow, which would have been really cool. However, after a real warm day, it would have eventually lost its crystal clear appearance, so really, it's not a big deal. Here's my first time walking on the rink. Wish me luck. So far, so good. The ice was about 4 to 5 inches thick, which was enough for me to walk on it, but I wanted to wait another day to skate on it just to be safe. So while waiting, I started working on building 14-foot tall light posts for the rink. Now these were made out of 4x4 posts, and they went together really quickly. They're real heavy, and they have a large base since they'll be going on top of the frozen ground. And next year I'm going to put the posts in concrete, but this works great if you want an overground light post. I'd recommend packing snow around the base or using cable tie-downs and stakes as an added measure in case you get a storm with some high winds. Now I ordered 400-watt LED lights for each post, and they each have 40,000 lumens, and so they're super bright, and I got them on Amazon and then fastened them to the post at a 30-degree angle. Next, I strung cable between a couple posts and hung a few flags before the first time trying out the rink with a group, which was 4 days after the rink was completed filling. The first skate with everyone was a blast. I've been learning so much about maintaining rinks over the last few weeks, and so I wanted to share some of the things I've been doing to maintain it. Now, after a big night of skating, we'll typically use a couple shovels to quickly remove the snow, and then I'll use a resurfacer to basically Zamboni the ice. One big tip I got was to use hot water or warm water, and so I installed an outdoor hot water faucet, which has been well worth the investment. The water runs all the way out to the rink and into the resurfacer, which then disperses the water evenly, and it has a mat that drags behind it. It takes about 15 minutes to resurface this size rink, and this is with a 32-inch wide resurfacer. So far, this method has been working really well, and the only thing I plan to change is to order a coiled hose that's easier to manage and that won't kink while resurfacing, and then to get a big rolling hose cart for the couple hundred feet of hose coming from the house so it can be easily managed, and then you can take it in the garage afterwards so the hose doesn't freeze. Once the resurfacing is done, I'll let it harden, and then the rink looks like new. Something I've found out about having a backyard hockey rink, just like the Field of Dreams baseball movie, is that if you build it, they will come. And that's definitely been the case, and so many friends, family, and teammates have come over to skate and to play hockey. Even the MSU Bobcats stopped over the other day to get in some skating action and 3-on-3 backyard hockey.
All right, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed watching the process of how this backyard ice hockey rink was built. It was a lot of fun. I learned so much along the way, and I hope it inspires you to go out and build your own rink. A huge shout out to Nicerink for sponsoring today's video. They're the maker of the boards, the liner, the accessories used in today's project. And if you're looking at building a rink, I definitely recommend checking out their kits and everything on their website. Again, thanks for watching. Subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video, and cheers from Montana.